Welcome to the sleepy historian. You are safe now. The world around you has quieted. Let your body grow heavy. Let your breath slow. There is nowhere you need to be except here. Tonight, we begin a journey not through space, but through time. Through memories etched in stone, in starlight, in stories whispered beside ancient fires. You won't need to pack anything. Just bring your wonder, and the gentle rhythm of your breath will drift through lost cities and hidden tombs, forgotten libraries and moonlit ruins. We'll follow echoes of footsteps, the hush of scrolls unrolling, the shadows of forgotten stars, not to memorize history but to feel it, to let it hold us, comfort us, and slowly guide us into sleep. These aren't just tales of kings or wars. They are soft moments of human hope, carved into the world like lullabies. You are not just falling asleep. You are falling into memory, into meaning, into the arms of time itself. So close your eyes, let go of the day. The first door is opening. Welcome to the sleepy historian. Let's begin. You lie still, and the night begins to breathe around. The air cools. Your thoughts soften. Above, the stars seem quieter than usual, pale lanterns scattered over a great silent sea. But below you, in the dream-thick layers of earth and memory, another world begins to stir, a world that once rose golden beneath the desert sun, Egypt, a letter sealed in sand for thousands of years. Not paper, but stone. Not ink, but shadow and sunlight. And now, as your breath deepens and your limbs grow heavy, this letter opens just for you. You drift into the land where time folds back on itself, like papyrus rolled tight around the secrets of kings. The sand, warm and endless, carries your body without effort. Each grain is a whisper. Each gust of desert wind sounds like a language you almost remember. It feels as though you've been here before, or perhaps, deep inside you, you've never left. Your first step is into stillness. There is no sound but the hush of wind curling around sandstone columns. Ruins rise like sleeping giants, worn by sun and centuries, but not defeated. You enter the skeletal remains of a temple, not broken, just paused. It waits for someone like you, a wandering mind, a listener. The air inside is cool, thick with the dust of forgotten offerings. Hieroglyphs trace the walls in looping grace, owls and eyes, reeds and suns, etched into time itself. These symbols are not mere writing. They are spells, poetry, each mark a thread in a tapestry of eternity. You run your fingers along the grooves, the stone warmer than you expect. And for a moment, you are not reading history, you are listening to it. Through these walls, a priest chants softly in the dark. A pharaoh walks past, his headdress brushing the air. Incense curls in columns beside you, and the Nile glimmers. Just beyond the entrance, moving like liquid silver under a crescent moon. This was a civilization that dreamed in permanence. Everything built to last forever, yet nothing truly does. Even the pyramids, those impossible monuments to ambition, are softened now, their edges worn, their secrets sealed behind limestone. Still they stand. Their presence presses against the horizon, reminding you that to reach toward the sky is also to bury yourself in the earth. You visit Giza next, in dream, not in haste. You lie at the feet of the Sphinx, whose half-lion face bears the gaze of 1,000 dawns. Its eyes no longer blink, but they see. They remember. Not as a human does, but as stone does, without question, without pause. You wonder if the Sphinx has ever slept, or if it simply waits, thinking in sand, for the return of what was lost. Around you, the desert is vast and reverent. Once, it was filled with the steps of workers, the voices of architects, the laughter of children who knew no other world but one shaped by gods and geometry. Their gods lived in everything, in beetles, in lotus flowers, in the flow of the Nile. Time for them was not a line, but a circle, ever turning like the river's flood and retreat, and it is here, by that river, that you feel your own thoughts begin to soften into still water. You see the Nile's current reflect the moonlight, weaving silver dreams across its surface. Crops once grew in perfect rhythm with its rise. The people called it a gift, the river, and the order it brought. That order had a name. Mat is not just law. It is balance, truth, harmony. It is the feather against which every soul was weighed in the afterlife. You picture the scale, your heart on one side, a single white feather on the other. Lighter than the feather, and you may pass. Heavier, and you are turned to dust. It's a simple, beautiful idea that how you live determines how gently you sleep. As you breathe now, more slowly, you feel Mat inside you, a symmetry between pulse and quiet, between all you carry and all you are ready to release. The night deepens, and so does your journey. You move now beyond the living to the places of the dead. But here, death was never an end. The tombs were not graves, but homes, filled with golden furniture and food for the spirit's long journey. You enter one now, walls flickering with painted stories of gods guiding the soul through 12 hours of night. Osiris awaits. Anubis watches, Thoth writes. You are safe here. This is a place where the soul is gently measured, not judged. Even in the dark, the ancients believed in light. Your mind wanders to Tutankhamun, the boy king whose resting place slept untouched for 3,000 years. When it was opened, they said the scent of ancient flowers still lingered in the air. Imagine that a garland preserved beyond decay, a fragrance from a world that no longer exists. Time can be kind when it chooses. It can hold memory as softly as petals. You feel that gentleness now, wrapping around you like linen, like the soft bandages that once held kings in dreams of resurrection. Mummification was not fear of death, but faith in waking again, in being remembered, in returning through stories. That's what you're doing now. You are the story. And as your breath grows slower still, you picture the tombs stretching like stars beneath the sand, the Valley of the Kings, a city of sleep. Even now, some lie undiscovered. Some secrets still dream beneath the surface, waiting not to be broken open, but quietly understood. Above dawn begins its slow ascent, not with drama, but with stillness. The same sun that once rose for Nefertiti and Ramses now rises for you. Light spills gently over temple stones, revealing nothing new and everything eternal. The wind picks up slightly, not a gust, but a sigh, a closing of the letter. Egypt retreats, not as a vanishing, but as a folding in. You have not left it. You have simply brought it with you, a story stitched into your breath, a golden thread in your sleep. And just before you drift beyond thought, you wonder what other letters lie waiting beneath the world. You lie still again, eyes closed, your breath the softest tide. The sands of Egypt have slipped behind your mind like a setting sun. But now, in this new darkness, something stirs, not a breeze, not a sound, but a pulse, a rhythm, a heartbeat that feels older than memory. You feel it beneath you, a forest, thick and breathing, It grows upward in silence, a green cathedral, stretching into sky, vines curl like script around stone. Roots press into centuries, and through this living world you sense the remnants of another, not buried in sand, but folded into jungle. You are in the land of the Maya here. Time does not move in straight lines. It spirals, it dances. You follow its curves like the path of the serpent, winding through shadow, light, and echo. A soft mist clings to your skin, and the air smells of rain and something older like incense or memory. You stand before a stepped pyramid, its stones, damp, moss-covered, humming with age. A temple, a calendar, a message. These are not ruins, they are still listening. Each step was carved with care, with numbers that mapped the stars. The Maya watched the heavens with eyes that never blinked. Venus, Jupiter, eclipses, their calendar was more precise than many that came after. Spinning in vast interlocking cycles, not counting time but feeling it. You place your hand against a carved stone. The glyph is smooth, and yet it vibrates gently under your fingers. It tells a story, not with letters, but with images shaped like dreams, jaguars, flames, gods in feathered masks. You don't read it, you receive it, somewhere deeper within the forest. A low drumbeat begins, faint, repetitive. You follow it slowly, not walking but gliding, as though your breath carries your body forward. The beat draws you to a clearing where dancers once moved, like water, where fires once reflected in painted eyes. You see them in flickers, their bodies wrapped in woven reds and golden greens. Feathers rise above their heads like rays of sunlight. They leap, they bow, they spin in unison. Ritual is rhythm, belief becomes motion, and for a moment the jungle becomes a theater of gods. To the Maya, the world was layered, sky above, earth here, underworld below, each one alive, each one sacred. Even death was not an end, but a descent, a passage through darkness to return again. In their temples, staircases climbed to the heavens, while sacred cenotes, deep sinkholes, opened pathways to the depths. You peer into one now, a sacred pool, cool and dark, ringed by vines and limestone. Stillness curls at its surface, but underneath lies offering jade, beads, gold pendants, bones of those who entered willingly, not sacrifice, but gift, to please the gods, to balance the world, to keep time turning. It has swallowed cities without malice. It covers pyramids in roots and shade, protecting rather than destroying. Beneath the soil, entire cities still sleep Dikal, Calakmul, El Mirador. Their names drift like lullabies across your thoughts. Not everything has been uncovered. Some stories still rest, intact in silence. You move now toward one of these forgotten cities. Trees arch overhead like vaulted ceilings. Birds call, but the sound is distant, as if you've stepped beyond time. You reach a crumbling archway carved with the likeness of a great bird deity, perhaps Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent, protector of knowledge, bearer of wind and light. Inside a room, stone benches, a carving of a ball game in motion, players mid-step, arms outstretched, the ball frozen mid-air in eternal suspense. You imagine the sound it made, a hard bounce against the earth, cheers rising, drums echoing against pyramid. Walls. These games were more than sport. They were myth played out in muscle and sweat, the sun battling the darkness, again and again. You sit in the coolness of the room and feel your breath match the rhythm of this lost city. calm, intentional. Every stone placed for a reason. Every shadow designed to echo something larger. The Maya built not just up, but inwards, toward understanding, toward cosmic order. They wrote not just history, but astronomy, agriculture, prophecy. In books made of bark, folded like fans. They inked the wisdom of generations. Codices, they were called. Most were burned. Colonizers arrived with fear in their hearts, mistaking knowledge for danger. Hundreds of books disappeared in smoke and judgment, but not all, a few survived. So did the stars, so did the stone, so did the whispers. Even now, Mayan descendants live and dream across Central America. Their language still flows. Their customs still bloom. They are not vanished, only misheard. And here, in this stillness, you hear them clearly. You press your palm against the stone once more, and the echo rises. Not loud, but full. It hums through your bones like memory finding its way home. You understand now, nothing is ever truly lost. It simply changes its voice. The jungle begins to fold back in. The mist returns. The drums quiet. The dancers blur. But the spiral remains. The shape of time according to the Maya. Not a clock, not a line. A breath, a cycle. A pulse that slows as you fall deeper into sleep, and as your body grows heavier, your thoughts lighter. One last image flickers. The sun carved into a temple. Corner, its rays unfurling like petals. Light, frozen in stone. Light, waiting to return. What other worlds spin just beyond the veil of green? You lie still again. Your breath is soft. Your body floats just above sleep, weightless. Around you, there is no forest now, no sand, no river. Only water, open, endless, and blue. It stretches beneath you like a silk sheet drawn tight. There is no wind, no shore in sight, only silence and sea, and the idea of something just beneath the surface. It begins as a whisper, not a voice, but a memory that does not belong to you. A name, spoken in a dream, Atlantis. The syllables linger, as if they once meant something more, not just a place, but a feeling, a question, a map inked in imagination. You drift lower until your toes skim the water. The sea is still, a mirror, and beneath it, barely visible, shapes begin to form. Circles, roads, pillars of impossible stone, lights that flicker like candle flames, even though there should be none. You are watching a city that may have never existed, but it lives now. In you, this is the puzzle of Atlantis. Not that it was lost, but that it might never have been found. Its story comes not from ruins or relics, but from a single voice, the philosopher Plato, writing nearly 2,400 years ago. In his words, Atlantis was a mighty island beyond the Pillars of Hercules, larger than Libya and Asia combined. It was rich in knowledge, vibrant with culture, adorned with gold, and blessed with balance. And then, in a single day and night, it sank, just vanished. Plato never called it history. He wove it into allegory, a lesson about power, about pride, about the fragile nature of perfection. But people wanted more than a lesson. They wanted a place. They longed to find it, to prove it was real, to walk its streets, to understand how such greatness could disappear and what that disappearance might say about us. So, for centuries, dreamers and explorers have hunted the edges of maps. Some looked near Spain, others searched the Atlantic floor. Some said it was Antarctica before the ice. Others whispered of Santorini, swallowed by volcanic fire. But no matter how many theories, no matter how much sea is searched, Atlantis remains where it began, not in soil, but in story. And yet, here, in the stillness of your half-sleeping mind, the sea begins to part. You see domes rising from coral, columns wrapped in light, gardens that move with the tide, not against it. There are no signs of struggle, no broken gates, only beauty held in breath. Paused in time, you glide forward. Your feet don't touch the ground, but you feel the city welcome you all the same. A staircase spirals downward into blue. You descend, weightless, into halls that hum with music you can't quite hear. The buildings here are not square and sharp. They are curved, like seashells, like waves. Each one reflects light from the surface, shimmering as though alive. Atlantis, in your dream, was not lost by disaster alone. It was forgotten, slowly, lovingly, like a book closed too gently to wake its words. You reach a chamber now, round and glowing. At its center, a map, carved in silver blue stone, not of land, but of time. You see cycles upon cycles, a city that rose not once, but many times, as though memory itself were trying to build something perfect from the pieces of what came before. You touch the center, and the room shivers with thought. Perhaps Atlantis was never meant to be found. Perhaps it was a mirror, a reflection of our hopes for what humans could become: wise, peaceful, united. And like a mirror, it cracked under the weight of what we really are. Your breath deepens. The sea grows darker around you, not with danger, but with rest. The city begins to blur, as though it too knows when to close its eyes. What is real and what is imagined no longer matter here. Both float in the same current. Both drift gently toward silence. The myth of Atlantis remains because we need it to. Not as proof, but as prayer. A reminder that greatness can fade and also return. That even if something is lost to time, it can be remembered in dreams. And as the sea carries you upward again, gently, like a lullaby drawn from the deep, you leave Atlantis not with answers, but with questions that warm rather than haunt. Where do our stories go when no one tells them? Who builds the cities in our minds? And if something beautiful vanishes, can it still echo through the soul? You open your eyes briefly. The world around you is quiet and real again. But under your breath, salt still lingers. A map curls softly inside your thoughts, not on paper, not in stone, but on water. A city made of maybe, a legend that waits in sleep. You lie still once more. The air around you grows thinner, cooler, as if your bed floats higher and higher, into the sky, brushing the tips of unseen peaks. Below, the world shrinks. The bustle of modern time fades away. All that remains is stillness and stone. The mountains call you now, not with voices, but with quiet, with the hush of snow on stone, with the sigh of wind along a path so old it no longer remembers its beginning. You are in the Andes, and the thread of time here is woven from footsteps. It is not a road you follow, but a trail, narrow, hand-hewn, stitched into the fabric of cliff and sky. The Inca people called it Capacón, the great Inca road. It stretched for thousands of miles, winding like a silver thread through Peru, Ecuador, Bolivia, Chile, and beyond. It connected not just cities, but worlds, valleys, oceans, stars. You begin to walk. Slowly, as your breath rises in mist before you, there is no rush here. The altitude humbles you. It asks you to notice, to feel. Each step is a sentence in a story the mountains have not finished telling. You pass through terraces, carved into slopes so steep they feel like walls. Each level once grew maize and potatoes, kissed by sun, watered by cisterns, engineered with a grace that still baffles minds. Today, these were not wild hills. They were gardens of stone, blooming with design, and there, in the distance, a city reveals itself, like a whispered secret, Machu Picchu, high, hidden, whole, cloaked in mist, perched between two peaks, like a breath held between heartbeats. No one truly knows why it was built, or why it was left behind. Was it a royal retreat, a sacred observatory, a ceremonial shrine to the sun? The truth, like the city, does not speak. It only stands. You enter its gates now, not as a tourist, but as a dreamer. The stones fit so perfectly, so silently, that you wonder if they grew together. No mortar holds them, only intention, only balance. They have withstood earthquakes, centuries forgetting, and yet there is no grandeur here, no arrogance, only grace. The doorways are small, the fountains quiet. You walk through rooms without roofs, their walls framing the sky. You stand in the temple of the sun, where light once entered only on the solstice, touching a sacred stone with the gentleness of a lover's hand. The Incas did not write books, but they recorded the world in strings, quipus, knots, and stones. Chords, each twist a number, a story, a law. It is a language not yet fully read, like the mountains themselves, open, visible, and still unknowable. And you sense, in this moment, that the Incas understood something that modern minds often forget, that to build something strong is to build with the land, not against it, that true power does not roar, it echoes. You wander now into the silence of the ceremonial plaza. The mountains rise on all sides like guardians, their peaks white with time. Llamas pass you, soft-footed and watchful, and somewhere, faintly, you hear music, a flute, a pampipi, a beat that matches your slowing heart. The Inca Empire once spanned more than 2,000 miles, but it had no wheels, no written words, no currency. It was held together by runners, swift young messengers called chasqui who dashed barefoot across the mountains, passing messages wrapped in knotted cords. You imagine one now, a boy, no older than you were once, sprinting up a steep slope with lungs full of sky and purpose. His feet barely touch the earth. He does not speak, but with each step he holds the empire together. He is the thread. You begin to follow him, though he fades into mist. And then comes the memory of another silence, the silence of conquest. In the 1500s, the Spanish arrived, steel against stone, cannon against quipu. Cities were torn down, languages were silenced, temples were buried beneath churches, but not all was lost. Machu Picchu remained hidden. The mountains kept their secrets, and in that hiding, something survived. Even now, the Inca spirit breathes through their descendants, the Quechua people who still speak the ancient tongue, still honor the sun, still walk the same trails with the same reverence. Their faces carry time, their hands carry tradition. They are not history, they are continuity. You sit now on a stone ledge, overlooking the sacred valley. It is dusk. The sun sinks behind the peaks, and golden light spills down into the folds. Of the land, the city glows for a moment, not with fire, but with memory. You breathe in the mountain air, thinner but sweeter. It fills you with a quiet knowing. that strength can be gentle, that empires can rise, not through domination, but through harmony. The wind brushes your skin, cool and clean. A condor rises in the distance, its wings wide as stories its glide, effortless as thought. You follow it with your eyes as it soars above the trail, above the stones, above the long line of history that stretches behind you. And you wonder, how far could the chasqui run without words? How much did they carry in silence? Perhaps you too are a runner now, carrying threads across the landscape of time, not with feet, but with dreams, not with knots, but with stories whispered just before sleep. The mist returns, night settles like a blanket over the peaks, the stars pierce the sky, clear and cold and close, and as your breath slows, one last thought lingers like a footprint in the stone. If time is a thread, what world are you still holding together as you rest? You lie still and the mountains fade. Behind your breath, the air warms slightly, like the hush before dawn in a fertile valley. Slowly, gently, you feel the ground flatten beneath you, softening into soil cradled between rivers. The stars above seem to realign, as though pointing you towards something old, something deeply rooted in the folds of the earth. You are in Mesopotamia. The name itself is a whisper. Between waters, the land between rivers. On one side flows the Tigris, on the other the Euphrates. Their paths wind like twin thoughts, guiding you toward the heart of beginnings. This is not just a place, it is where the idea of place was born. You feel yourself standing at the edge of an ancient city, not in ruins, not yet, but in its full breath. A Sumerian city, low and sun-baked, wrapped in mud-brick walls. The air is thick with the scent of wet clay and fire. Fires that once dried tablets, fires that sealed memory. The city murmurs. Softly around you, distant footsteps, water drawn from wells, the flap of linen against sunburnt skin. Everything here is measured, deliberate, awake. You follow a narrow street, your feet brushing dust that has settled over thousands of years. On either side, houses cluster like thoughts, low-roofed and square. Their doors are humble, but the minds behind them are building something vast. Order. The Sumerians did not merely live, they recorded. They shaped thought into symbol, symbol into language, language into law. Their script, cuneiform, began as pictures pressed into clay with a sharpened reed, not drawn, imprinted, pressed in with fire-born purpose. You hold one such tablet now, warm from the kiln. The wedge-shaped marks curl across its surface like tiny river paths. You can't read them, not literally, but you feel their meaning. Lists, trade, hymns, epics. Here, in these impressions, is the architecture of thought, the beginning of writing, of stories, of everything we know. You follow the thread of one story now, winding back to the Epic of Gilgamesh, the oldest known tale, written in the slow breath of clay. You sit beside a Sumerian scribe, his hands steady, his posture sacred. By firelight, he copies the tale word for word, the journey of a king seeking immortality, the grief of losing a friend, the thunder of gods, and the stillness of understanding. And you see yourself in it. Even across millennia, the questions are the same. How do we face death? How do we make meaning of time? The Sumerians shaped these questions, not with answers, but with offerings, temples, poems, cities that held both power and prayer. You walk toward one now, a ziggurat rising from the earth like a stairway carved into the sky. It is not smooth like the pyramids. It is layered, tiered, textured with time. Each level climbs toward something unseen. A God that lives above the world but listens through flame and wind. You climb slowly, your feet light but your thoughts deepening. As you reach the upper terrace, you feel the pull of sky and dust in equal measure. The wind brushes against your face. You are standing where kings once stood, not to rule, but to speak with the divine. This was the age of Enheduanna, the world's first named author, a high priestess, a poet, a woman who wrote to her goddess in verses still preserved. Her voice reaches you across the span of silence, soft but unshaken. You are lofty like the heavens, she once wrote. You thunder like a storm. You repeat the words in your mind, and they settle into your breath like prayer. Below, the city moves with rhythm. Canals glisten in the sun. Crops ripple in the breeze. Wheat, barley, date palms. Time here is marked not just by stars, but by the slow turning of the plough, the rising of bread, the setting of suns. Everything that grows is recorded. Nothing is too small to name. The Sumerians divided time into 60ths, the root of our minutes and seconds. They observed the stars and mapped the heavens, but never as distant watchers. They believed the sky spoke back, that lightning was a message, that dreams were doors, that numbers could bring order to the chaos of living. You walk into the temple quarter now, where priests light incense and measure omens in oil and flame. You hear chants rising in soft waves, not loud, but layered, like echoes returning from long corridors. And as the scent curls around you, a thought arises. They weren't trying to control the world. They were trying to understand how to live in rhythm with it. And perhaps that is what civilization means. Not cities or roads, but harmony. A shared song. A place where humans agree to remember, together, but fire can give, and fire can take. The Sumerians gave way to the then the Babylonians, then the Assyrians. Cities rose and fell like tides drawn by different moons. Kings carved their laws into towering stones, like Hammurabi's code, hoping to make justice permanent. But even stone softens under centuries. Even the most rigid rules fade into dust, and yet the tablets remain. Tens of thousands have been found in broken heaps, in buried libraries, in forgotten rooms where no one expected memory to survive. You picture them now, stacked in rows, their characters still sharp, still glowing with human thought. They carry shopping lists and prophecies, contracts and lullabies. They are not grand, but they are alive. As your eyes grow heavier, you see a final image. A child, thousands of years ago, tracing cuneiform into soft clay. She pauses, lifts the stylus, and presses a single mark a little too deep. A mistake, but she smiles. She smooths the surface. She tries again, and that, too, is written. You lie back into sleep. The earth beneath you is warm. The rivers flow, on either side, cradling your breath. And in the darkness, the fire still glows, not to destroy, but to preserve, to illuminate, to write with warmth what might otherwise be lost. What else have we shaped from flame, simply because we feared? Forgetting. You lie still, and the wind shifts direction, warm, fragrant, and full of old songs. It carries the scent of blossoms, no longer blooming, and waters no longer flowing. And yet, as you breathe deeper, they feel near, vivid, as if you've stepped into the quiet heart of a forgotten garden, where the air hangs heavy with memory. This is Babylon, a name more myth than map. A city that once stood where the Euphrates curved like a slow brushstroke across the plains of Mesopotamia. A city so rich in meaning that even now, long after its towers have crumbled, it lives on in whispers and metaphors. You float just above its ancient streets, where clay bricks once bore the mark of kings. There is no rush here, no motion, only potential, the stillness before memory becomes dream. You are here to find the garden, the hanging gardens of Babylon, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, a place so lush, so improbable, that some believe it never existed. But here, in your resting mind, it does. Not as a ruin, but as a vision. You see them rise before you now. Terraces layered high like green pyramids, spilling with vines, orchids, palms, and water that climbs against gravity. Birds nest in alcoves carved from brick. Fragrant trees rustle above walkways dappled with shade. There is no dry earth here, only coolness, moisture, and the breath of a world carefully tended. According to legend, King Nebuchadnezzar II built the garden for his queen, a gift of love, of homesickness eased. She had come from distant mountains, and the flat heat of Babylon weighed on her heart. So he built her a mountain that breathed, a memory made real in stone and soil. You imagine her now, walking barefoot along a tiled path, trailing her fingers through hanging leaves, pausing at a pool where fish shimmer like droplets of living gold. Her thoughts soften, her sorrow lifts. You walk beside her, step by step. The bricks beneath you are glazed in blues and greens, reflecting the sky and the water. Each tile holds heat from the sun and cool from the spray. Above you, aqueducts sing softly as they deliver water to every root, every petal. Engineering and affection married in motion. This was the genius of Babylon, not just beauty, but balance. Precision hidden in abundance. The gardens were more than decoration. They were proof that even in a desert humans could command paradise with patience, intellect, and yearning. But Babylon was not only a garden. You pass beyond the greenery now, toward the city's core, toward the Ishtar Gate, massive and blue, embedded with lions and dragons that shimmer like starlight. It once marked the entrance to the inner city, a gateway for both celebration and conquest. As you step beneath its towering arch, the walls seem to breathe with power and elegance. They do not intimidate. They announce the city behind it spreads wide temples, ziggurats, courts, marketplaces. It was here that Hammurabi once reigned, here that astronomers charted the movement of Venus and Mars, here that myths were born, of towers that scraped the heavens and tongues that scattered like dust in the wind. And at the center of it all, the Tower of Babel. It is not as high as the myths claimed, but it rises all the same, a ziggurat stacked in stages, its summit lost in haze. You climb it now, slowly, as dreams deepen. With each level, your thoughts thin out like air, not empty, just open. You reach the top, and the garden returns, not in vines, but in vision. Below you, Babylon spreads like a tapestry woven in fire and water. And in that moment you understand what the tower meant, not arrogance, but longing. Not a desire to reach the gods, but to be seen by them. Babylon has always been a mirror, reflecting what humans dare to build, and how quickly we let it fall. For it did fall, conquered by Persia, ravaged by time, swallowed by sand and silence. Alexander the Great, centuries later, passed through its ruins and wept for what was lost. Not just the city, but the idea of it. A place where gardens could climb and language could rise like wind into sky. You descend now, slowly. The gate is gone. The water has stilled. The vines have browned. But even in this emptiness, something remains. Not the bricks, not the towers, but the intent, the desire to make something beautiful for someone else. You sit again in the imagined garden. The queen is gone, the king is gone, but the water still flows in your mind. You hear it now, a gentle rhythm, like breath, like the bloodstream of the earth. And just before sleep takes you fully, a final thought lingers. What gardens might we still build, not to last forever, but to be remembered softly? You lie still once more, and the land beneath you gives way to gentle motion, not falling, floating, rocking, as if your bed were no longer bed, but boat. Around you, the world softens. The air grows damp, scented with salt and thyme. You open your eyes in a dream, and water surrounds you. You are in Venice, but not the Venice of postcards or crowds. This Venice is silent, pale, a city of glass light and blue hush. No engines, no voices, only the sound of water lapping softly against stone. Like a lullaby played on an ancient harp, you sit in a gondola, black as night, elegant as breath. It glides without effort down a narrow canal, turning corners that feel more like memories than streets. The buildings lean inward, walls of crumbling pink and grey, their windows shuttered like tired eyes. Time flows differently here, not forward, but around Venice was born not on land, but on the sea. Long ago, people fled the crumbling Roman world and found safety in the marshes of the Adriatic. They drove wooden pilings into mudflats and built homes where no army could follow. And from those shaky beginnings rose a republic, a power, a poem, a city built not to conquer, but to trade. Venice grew rich, not through war, but through knowing what the world wanted. Silk, glass, pepper, mirrors, stories. Its merchants sailed east to Constantinople, south to Cairo, west to Lisbon, and in return the world flowed back through its narrow veins, gold, spices, ideas, languages. You glide past one such memory now, the Rialto market, where scents of saffron and fig once danced in the air. You see shadows of merchants, weighed with coin and choice, their words weaving a tapestry of tongues. They speak Italian, Greek, Arabic, Hebrew, but their faces wear the same expression, wonder. You drift beneath the Rialto bridge, its arch rising like a sigh over the canal. Every stone here was once carried by hand, placed with care, balanced not just in physics, but in trust. Venice did not bend the world to its will. It learned the world's rhythm and moved with it. That rhythm echoes now in the splashing of oars, in the creak of rope, in the wind that moves through marble corridors. You pass palaces rising directly from water, their doors opening not to roads but to reflection. No city is more self-aware. No city is more quiet in its elegance. You arrive now at the heart of it all, Piazza San Marco. The square opens wide. Before you, like a breath of light. Even in your dream, it feels like a secret held open. The Basilica di San Marco shimmers with gold and mosaic, its domes soft as bells, its walls stitched with stolen beauty. Every panel, every stone, every saint in glass, gathered from across the Mediterranean, pieced together like prayer. You step inside. The air is cool, sacred, Light slants from high windows, scattering gold across the floor. The ceiling rises. Like a painted sky, scenes of angels and eternity. But there is no heaviness here, only wonder. Venice knew how to balance power and poetry. It crowned its leaders, but limited their rule. The Doge, elected for life, walked through the city, not as a king, but as a servant of its soul. No golden throne, only ritual, ceremony, responsibility, to steer the city like a gondola, gently, in stillness, with care. And yet, even paradise can decay. Venice began to sink, not just into water, but into memory. Trade routes shifted. Empires rose elsewhere. The sea, once her partner, began to eat away at her foundations. Salt crept into her bones. Mosaics flaked. Marble buckled. You drift past the crumbling edges now, but not in sadness. Venice does not resist time. It dances with it. Slowly, proudly. The buildings lean, but do not fall. The water rises, but the city floats, and the people remain, poets. Boat builders, artisans who still blow glass with breath and flame. Each day they rebuild what the tide wears down. Not to preserve perfection, but to honor the rhythm. You return now to your boat. The sky above is velvet. Lanterns flicker on. The water casting golden trails like stories into sleep. The gondolier does not speak. He rows in silence, eyes calm, posture reverent. You watch his rhythm. You match your breath to his stroke. The stars begin to reflect in the canal, one by one. The moon drapes its light over the domes and bell towers. And Venice, this floating dream, breathes with you. She does not cling to what she was. She simply continues, light, quiet, beautiful in impermanence. And as your eyes begin to close again, rocked gently by the current, one thought drifts across. Your mind like a tide returning home. Can a city remember how to float, even as the world forgets how to pause? You lie still once more, and the gentle swaying of boats and the shimmer of canals gives way to something firmer beneath you. The ground steadies, the rhythm changes. You feel it in your bones now, a slow, deliberate cadence, step, step, step. As if somewhere, long ago, sandaled feet still march across a sun-baked road. This is the road of Rome. You are not in the heart of the city yet, not among the marble temples or gilded columns. You are farther out, in the countryside where silence rests between olive groves, where the road runs straight and strong. Vanishing into the horizon, the Via Appia, the queen of roads, laid stone by stone more than 2,000 years ago. You walk it now, each slab worn smooth by the passing of time and sandals, wheels, whispers. The air is dry, scented with dust and cypress. There is no need to hurry. The road is always ahead of you, waiting. Rome was not built in a day, and neither were her roads. This one stretches south from the city gates, once reaching the distant ports of Brandisium. It carried merchants, generals, messengers, slaves. It carried ideas, victories, defeats. It carried law. And you feel that law now, not as rules, but as rhythm. The Romans believed in order, in clarity, in permanence. Their roads were not just paths. They were arteries of empire, connecting every far-flung village, every windswept garrison, every conquered shore back to one golden heart. You pass a milestone, half buried, its inscription still half legible in the soft light. These markers counted distance from the Forum in Rome, from the center. Wherever you stood in the empire, you could know exactly how far you were from home. That was Rome's genius. not merely to conquer, but to connect. As you continue, your dream deepens. The road changes subtly, and so does the world around it. You now walk beneath aqueducts, stone arches stretched like ribs across the landscape. Above them, water once flowed in quiet grace, feeding cities, fountains, baths. The engineering is humble in its strength. No wires, no steel, just stone, slope, and trust. You reach a Roman town now, modest yet elegant tiled roofs, colonnades. The steady bustle of a people who understand their place in the world. You see a public bath, steam rising gently in the early light. You hear voices echoing in Latin, slow and measured. You walk past a forum where merchants haggle, orators speak, children run. There is motion, but not haste, structure, but not stillness. Rome was vast, but its power lived in its details, in the regularity of bricks, the alignment of roads, the ticking logic of time. Their calendar shapes yours still. Their words curl into your language, quiet as roots beneath a tree. You sit now beside a legionary camp, pitched in perfect square, tents aligned with the stars, fires lit in equal distances. A soldier sharpens his blade, not in anger, but in readiness. He does not know where the next conquest lies, only that the road will take him there. Rome moves, not with chaos, but with choreography, and yet, beneath the armor, you see something softer. A scroll held in his pack, a carved figurine, a letter. From home, even the legions carried stories. And though their boots left scars in many lands, they also brought roads, baths, laws, and lines that still shape modern maps. You rise and walk again. The road winds through time now into the forum where senators once debated in marble halls, into the Colosseum where spectacle and shadow danced, into villas covered in painted myths and myths made into law, and beyond the grandeur you see its cost. Slaves hauled the stones, provinces fed the appetite of empire, languages faded beneath Latin's advance. Resistance was answered with discipline, swift, unyielding. You feel it in the road itself, how solid it is, how heavy, but still the roads remain, even when Rome fell. When her statues crumbled and her emperors scattered into memory, the roads endured. Centuries passed, new kingdoms rose, old maps dissolved, but travelers still walked the Via Appia, pilgrims, poets, dreamers. You walk it now, not to conquer, not to measure, but to remember. At your side, the road stretches on, neither beginning nor end, just continuation. And in your footsteps, you carry both the clarity and contradiction of Rome, its law and its longing, its marble and its mourning. The sun dips low now. Cypress trees cast long shadows across the stones. The road is quiet, but not empty and just. Before sleep rises like a veil over your thoughts, you ask yourself, how far must we walk before we understand the shape of what we left behind? You lie still, and the stone roads of Rome fade into warmth. Not the warmth of sun on marble, but of flame, glowing, alive, breathing in the dark. It flickers gently, not to consume, but to illuminate. Around you, domes rise like moons, and minarets spiral like thought. The sky shimmers with smoke and story. You are in Constantinople, a city that has worn many names. Byzantium, Constantinople, Istanbul. But tonight, in this dream, it is the city of in-between, between continents, between ages, between faiths. A city built on a fault line, not just of earth, but of empires. The fire here is not wild, it is deliberate. It dances in lanterns and candles, in mosaics and manuscripts. It is the fire of learning, of liturgy, of longing. You walk the mazy, the city's great road, winding past fountains and forums, its stones smoothed by 1,000 years of sandals, hooves, prayers. Once Roman emperors walked here, but now their robes glisten with new light, golden, eastern, slow dash, burning. Constantine the Great made this city the new Rome, but not a copy. He crowned it with churches instead of temples, filled it with relics and revelations, and over time, something new grew from its fire, the Byzantine Empire, an echo of Rome that became a world of its own. You approach its heart now, the Hagia Sophia. From outside, it is solemn, a vast dome hovering over the skyline like a thought too large to name. But inside, it is wonder. You step through the great doors and are swallowed by silence, not absence, but awe. The dome above seems to float impossibly light. Light pours in through hidden windows, catching gold leaf and marble, glinting off. Mosaics that shimmer like stars inside stone. You feel the fire here, not of destruction, but of devotion. The flicker of candles at every alcove. The gleam of eyes in mosaics, watching gently. 1,000 years ago, they say, visitors entered this place and whispered, "I did not know whether I was on earth or in heaven." You feel that now. You move past the altar, through the shadows, and into the scriptorium where monks once copied ancient texts by hand, each letter a prayer, each stroke a breath. The Byzantine Empire did not conquer with weapons alone. It preserved, it translated Greek into Arabic, Hebrew into Latin, Roman law into Byzantine code. Fire became ink, torch became text. But Byzantium was not only thought, it was defense. A city under siege, again and again, always between enemies and ages, yet its walls held. You walk them now, the Theodosian walls, thick with time and battle. They do not boast, they endure. And atop one tower you find a small furnace, still glowing. Inside, a strange, secret flame. Greek fire, a weapon of the Byzantines, feared across seas. It burned even on water. Its formula is still unknown, but you feel its presence, not just in battle, but in spirit. Byzantium learned to protect, not only land, but legacy. You follow a thread now, winding through time. You enter the imperial palace, its halls worn but graceful. You see emperors cloaked in gold, and empresses guiding councils. Here ruled Theodora, a woman of fire and steel, who rose from the stage to the throne, and from scandal to sovereignty. Her voice still echoes through stone, and there, in a smaller chamber, you see artists at work. They do not sign their names. They do not chase praise. Their work is for God, for beauty, for memory. You watch them place, mosaic after mosaic, tiny glass tiles, gold on gold, until an angel's face emerges from the wall, timeless and tender. The city sings in multiple tongues, Greek, Latin, Armenian, Arabic, yet it breathes in a single rhythm. Bells ring across neighborhoods. Traders whisper along the docks. And always, the fire burns quietly in books, in prayer, in the inner light of those who refuse to let knowledge be lost. But even fire cannot hold forever. In 1453, the city fell. After centuries of glory and siege, the Ottoman Empire breached. The walls, cannons cracked stone, churches fell silent. The Hagia Sophia once echoing with chants in Greek, now filled with the call to prayer. Yet the fire did not die. It changed shape. The city became Istanbul, and a new empire rose. Minarets grew beside domes. Calligraphy replaced mosaic, but the rhythm remained. One empire passed into another, not as a death, but as a transformation, a continuation through flame. You walk now through modern streets, cobbled and bright, where coffee steams in tiny cups and seagulls drift above the Bosphorus. Old men play chess beside Roman columns. Children skip past Byzantine wells. A city of layers, still living, still watching. You stand once more before the Hagia Sophia. No longer church, no longer mosque, not merely museum, just presence, a sacred breath drawn across centuries, a place that remembers even as it changes. And in the soft light, as sleep begins to settle in your limbs, you realize some fires do not consume, they illuminate, they write, they watch, they wait, and just before the dream fades, a question hovers like incense in the dome above. What lights will we leave burning, not to last forever, but to guide those who come after us in the dark? You lie still, and the warmth of empire fades into something quieter, more fragile. The scent around you changes. Old parchment, melted wax, dry reeds inked with care. The fire now is gentle, steady. It does not burn, but glows. You are no longer walking roads or climbing towers. You are entering a memory of memory. You are in Alexandria, but not the Alexandria of modern Egypt. You are farther back, where the desert meets the sea and the mind meets the stars. The city spreads out before you, golden in the sunlight, ringed with marble and harbor. You hear the sea breathing nearby, and somewhere inside it all nestled like a thought. Inside the skull of the world waits a library, the library of Alexandria. It stands quietly now in your dream, not ruined, but whole, not legendary, but living. You walk its corridors as if through the folds of a sleeping mind. There are no guards, no gates, only rooms, endless rooms, filled with scrolls. Papyrus shelves curve into darkness. Starlight slants through windows. Dust swirls in silence, alive with echoes. You are not alone. Scholars walk beside you, barefoot, slow-moving, as if afraid to disturb the air. Some recite aloud. Others sit cross-legged, transcribing with ink and reed. Languages rise like steam, Greek, Sanskrit, Egyptian, Hebrew, and all of it preserved, held, not for power, not for glory, but for knowing. The dream of the library was simple. Everything to gather all knowledge under one roof. Every story, every formula, every map, every myth, every measurement of the stars. You see crates of scrolls arriving by ship, seized from traders, copied carefully, and returned. You hear scribes arguing over translations. You hear laughter at a line of Homer. You hear silence as someone reads. Alone, for the first time, a theory of atoms written centuries too early to be believed. You walk deeper, past shelves labeled with planets, diseases, ethics, shadows, past. Tables where minds once stretched toward infinity. This was not merely a building, it was an organism. The scrolls were its veins, the scholars its breath. You pass a room glowing with soft lamplight, and within it, Hypatia, philosopher, mathematician, astronomer. Her voice is calm, clear, like wind brushing a still pool. She teaches geometry with a stick and sand. She writes with wax and fire. She explains the motion of the heavens as if pointing to her own heartbeat. You sit and listen, and with each word your breath slows. Time folds inward. The walls of the library blur. You are no longer merely in Alexandria. You are inside the longing to understand. For this is what the library was, a cathedral not of gods, but of questions. And yet, even here, flame waited. No one knows for certain how the library fell. Perhaps it burned during Caesar's war, or under later rulers who saw danger in questions. Perhaps it faded slowly, scroll by scroll, until the silence became permanent. But one truth remains. The loss still echoes. You stand now in an imagined ruin, not cold or broken, but grieving. Empty shelves, scattered fragments. A library that dreamed it could hold the world, and awoke to Ashdod. And yet you look down in your hand. One scroll remains still warm, still whole. It does not carry numbers or war plans or laws. It carries a poem, a name, a single line of wonder. You unroll it gently. You read, let the stars burn above, so long as we remember to look up. A quiet survives the fire. You walk out into the harbor light, where ships once arrived with knowledge, hidden in their hulls. The sea stretches wide, blue and unknowable, and above it the sky watches. Even now you realize the dream of the library survives, not in brick, but in breath, in every school, every journal, every quiet person copying a thought in the hope it might outlive them. And perhaps the dream was never to preserve everything, but to kindle a mind somewhere that would carry the flame forward. You close your eyes. The ink fades, the shelves dissolve, but the light remains, and as you drift into deeper sleep, one last whisper curls around your heart. What else are we trying to remember before the fire forgets it for us? You lie still, and the sea breeze of Alexandria recedes like the tide pulling away from thought. The silence that remains is deep, ancient, dry. It brushes against your skin like sand carried on sacred wind. There are no voices now, no chants, only the sound of the sun. You are in the desert. The sky stretches wide above you, pale as bone. The earth is red and ochre, sculpted into high cliffs and silent passageways. And hidden within these walls, almost invisible until you're inside it, is a city that once inhaled and waited. This is Petra, a city not built, but revealed, cut directly from the rock by the Nabateans, a people who whispered their empire into the silence of stone and left behind echoes too beautiful to fade. You walk now through the sick, a narrow gorge twisting like a memory. The walls on either side rise tall, tight, smooth. You run your hand along one warm, wind-worn, curved by time. It feels like touching the inside of the earth's dream, and then the gorge opens. Before you stands the Treasury Alcazna, a facade carved into rose-colored cliff. It shimmers in the sun, not white like marble, but soft as coral. Columns, pediments, figures frozen in stillness. It looks like a temple or a palace, or a thought held too long. You do not enter, not yet. You only stand there and feel what they must have felt. Wonder. Petra was a place of gathering, a city of passage, of pause, not built on conquest, but carved from trade, where in sense caravans stopped to rest, where camels knelt and silver changed hands, frankincense from Arabia, spices from India, silk from China. Everything passed through here, including gods. The Nabateans did not choose just one god. They built temples for many, Dushara, their mountain god, watched from above. Al-Uza, goddess of stars and water, lived in springs and dark corners. Even the gods from neighboring lands found room here. Greek, Egyptian, Roman. The city did not resist influence. It welcomed it and turned it into architecture. You walk deeper into Petra now, past tombs and columns, past rock cut into doorways and staircases that lead nowhere or perhaps everywhere. The entire city was designed to rise with the sun and fall into shadow. You see light bending around corners. Time moves differently here, curled around stone. At night, the city glows with candles. You sit with other dreamers in the silence of the canyon, watching shadows dance on rock that has not crumbled, only softened. The stars above are sharp and cold. The air is still, and you understand this is not a place of noise. It is a place of arrival. Petra held its breath, not for a king, not for a war, but for meaning. You ascend now toward the monastery, a towering facade carved high in the cliffs. Your steps are slow. There is no hurry. The stone watches you, not judging, only remembering. When you reach the top, the world spreads wide beneath you. The desert unfolds in every direction, horizon without end. And the building before you, though made for worship, says nothing. It simply stands. It endures. That was Petra's language. Stillness. Even its decline was quiet. Rome swallowed its trade routes. Earthquakes shifted its foundations. Sand covered its roads, and still it remained empty, listening. You descend now into its softer corners. Water channels carved with care. Cisterns dug deep to hold the brief gift of rain. The Nabateans understood scarcity. They shaped their lives around it, turning drought into ritual, waiting into worship. And you realize Petra is not just a city of gods. It is a city that teaches how to wait. In our modern rush, we measure time in seconds. In Petra, time is measured in stone, in how long it takes to shape a wall, in how many sunsets fall across a single threshold, in how long a city can breathe before it is forgotten, and how long after it still breathes. The sand begins to shift beneath your feet now. The air cools. The stars wheel slowly above the gorge. And you, lying back against warm rock, wonder how many others have stared at this sky, hoping a god would step through the silence. But maybe the silence is the god. Maybe Petra did not build temples to invite divinity, but to remind us that the divine may already be here, waiting for us to stop moving. You exhale, and just before your breath joins the stillness, one last thought lingers in the warm, listening air. If we hold still long enough, what forgotten voices might rise again from the stone beneath our feet? You lie still, and the desert hush of Petra falls away like sand from your skin. The wind changes, colder now, edged with memory and ash. Your breath grows shallow, not from fear, but from altitude. The sky above you is deeper, darker, closer. You are climbing slowly, dreamlike, toward a place where earth once opened and swallowed time whole. This is Vesuvius, and beneath its shadow lies Pompeii, a city caught between breath and burial, preserved not by memory but by fire. The mountain looms behind you. It does not growl or smoke. It only watches. And as your feet carry you across the cracked stones of Pompeii's silent streets, the sky above remains calm, as if nothing ever happened. But the earth remembers. You walk along the Via della Bandanza, Pompeii's main street, once bustling, with vendors, bakers, laughter, argument, lovers. Now only echo. The ruts of wagon wheels are still carved into the road, as if the carts had just passed moments ago. Time here does not move. It waits. You pass frescoes still bright with red and gold, scenes of feasts, dances, myths, walls painted with the pride of ordinary life, not kings or generals, but children with fruit, a woman in a mirror, a dog curled by the door. The art speaks of a city alive in its details, and yet it all ends in silence. August 24th, 79 CE, the mountain erupted. At first, they did not know to run. Ash rained gently, like snow in summer. The air darkened, but not enough to fear. Then came the heat. Pyroclastic flows surged down Vesuvius's flanks, faster than sound, hotter than fire. Streets filled with darkness. Doors sealed shut. Breath ended mid-sentence. And in that moment, the stars fell. You walk into a house where time stopped mid-morning. Loaves of bread still rest in ovens. Tools sit beside half-carved stone. A meal was nearly finished. A painting nearly done. Nothing was completed, and so everything is eternal. You feel no horror here, only stillness. The people are gone, but their outlines remain. Casts made from voids in ash, the shape of bodies curled in sleep, in prayer, in pause. They did not pose, they simply stopped, and Pompeii held them, not as martyrs, not as statues, but as reminders. You step into a garden once sacred to Venus, goddess of beauty, of bloom. Vines grow again along the edges, birds nest in the cracks. Even the ruined city breathes. Even beneath the ash, life waits. Vesuvius is not angry. It is only alive. It does not explain or excuse. It simply watches. And you begin to understand. This was never about punishment. It was about the fragility of ordinary moments. Pompeii did not fall because it was evil. It fell because it was living, because it was real, because it was caught in the middle of a breath. And that is all we ever are, one breath between what has come and what will come next. You climb now toward the crater's rim. The sky is wide, Naples shimmers far below, and from this height, the pass looks small, soft, held gently in the folds of a sleeping mountain. You peer into the dark mouth of the volcano. It does not move, but deep within, something waits. Not menace, but memory. Fire that once erased, now cradles what it could not destroy. The wind brushes your face. It smells faintly of sulfur and time. Far below, the excavated city lies, quiet, exposed like a heartbeat beneath skin. You see rooftops without owners, temples without gods. But you also see resilience. Pompeii teaches us how to look, not at grand empires, but at fleeting gestures. A ring still on a finger, a message scratched into a wall. Be happy, live well. You lie back now on warm stone. The sun lowers behind the mountain. The sky glows, peach, then purple. And you think of how stars look brightest just before they fall. The quiet settles again, not as death, but as reverence. And just before your thoughts slip below the horizon, one final question stirs like ash in the wind. What might remain of us, not in monuments, but in the smallest, most human signs of living? You lie still, and the stone and silence of Pompeii give way to something lighter. The ground beneath you begins to sway, not with fear, but with motion, with memory. A gentle rock, like cradle or current. Around you, the air is thick with salt and wind. You are no longer on land. You are drifting. You are aboard a ship, not a grand galleon, not a war vessel. This is a merchant ship, wooden, sturdy, shaped by tools and tide. It creaks gently, its ropes humming like the strings of an ancient lyre. The sea around you is vast, glowing with morning. Somewhere nearby, gulls cry, but you are heading far from shore. You are sailing with the Antikythera. She is old, lost to time, and yet here, in your dream, she floats again, not only as wood, but as mystery. For within her hull, hidden among amphorae and barnacles, lies something far older than her voyage, something not meant to be found, something that almost wasn't. A mechanism. You descend below deck. The hold smells of olive oil and wine, of salt water and wood rot. You pass crates and jars, ropes and coins, and then tucked in a broken chest, you find it not large, not glowing, just fragments of bronze, greened by centuries, shaped like broken stars. The Antikythera mechanism, it rests in your palm like a riddle, wheels within wheels, gears with teeth fine as eyelash combs, not decoration, not accident, but design. Patient, deliberate, astonishing. This was no weapon, no tool of war. It was a computer, ancient analog, mechanical, made in the 2nd century BCE, and it could predict eclipses, track the movements of the sun, moon, and planets. It knew the math of shadows. It mapped time in metal. You turn it gently. The gears hum in your hand, and for a moment, the ceiling dissolves. Above you, the night sky opens. The stars are not scattered, but arranged. Mars drifts into retrograde. Jupiter climbs past Pisces. An eclipse darkens a crescent sea. The heavens become a clock, and you, the one turning it, who built this, you return to the deck, where the waves roll like breath. Historians still debate. Some say it came from Rhodes, home to brilliant engineers. Others whisper Archimedes. Others still, some unknown genius, lost like so many minds before the age of printing, before the age of preservation. The Antikythera was not alone. It was part of a world more advanced than we often remember. Greek astronomers who measured Earth's circumference, Babylonian stargazers who predicted lunar cycles, Egyptian priests who built calendars in stone, and yet it vanished for 2,000 years. The mechanism lay in darkness, forgotten beneath the sea, buried under coral, unknown even to the thinkers of the Renaissance. When it was pulled from the wreck in 1901, no one knew what it was. It took decades to understand. X-ROS, reconstructions, simulations, and even now, part of it remains hidden, gears missing, purposes guessed. And so the device becomes a symbol, not just of knowledge, but of what knowledge can disappear. The ship didn't sink in battle. It wasn't a tragedy of ambition, just a storm, a shift in wind, an ordinary failure. And because of it, a universe vanished, not from the stars, but from our understanding of them. You stare out now across the endless sea. It whispers, it does not mourn. The sea does not hoard. It carries away what we drop, and returns it only when we are ready to see. The Antikythera returned, when we could begin to comprehend it, not before. Like a message buried not in sand, but in timing. You lie back on the deck now. The stars blink overhead. You feel the mechanism beside you, humming, warm, silent. And you wonder what else the world once understood, what else was dreamed, drawn, solved and lost, not because it failed, but because it simply drifted out of reach. You begin to sleep. The boat rocks gently. The night deepens, and just before the stars blur into sleep, a final thought spins like a gear behind your eyes. What if every answer has already been discovered, and the sea is simply waiting for us to ask again? You lie still, and the waves of the Aegean fade beneath you. The stars above no longer shimmer distantly. They tilt, grow nearer. The earth slips quietly behind you like a memory. There is no sound here, no air, only breath inside your body and the slow rotation of blue and black. You are no longer dreaming on Earth. You are traveling toward the moon, but not as an astronaut, not as a machine. You are moving in the quiet rhythm of history, toward a moment when the ancient longing to reach upward was finally met by footprint. A moment that was watched by more eyes than any in human memory. A moment when Apollo 11 descended from silence to dust. You arrive gently. The surface is still pale grey, textured like ash and stone. Above Earth hangs, suspended, glowing, with oceans and weather. You are standing in a place that had waited 4.5 billion years for someone to arrive, and when they did, they came with silence and awe. You walk now beside a man in a white suit, his visor gold, his movements slow and careful, as if underwater. His name is Neil Armstrong, and you watch as he steps from the ladder and says words that do not echo here. That's one small step for man, ... but ripple across every living mind below. You follow his path. The dust beneath your feet is fine, powdery, untouched. It holds footprints perfectly, because here there is no wind, no rain, no erosion. The marks remain. The moment remains. The moon has memory. You walk past the lunar module, fragile as foil, shaped like a golden insect. You see tools laid out, samples gathered. You see a small flag, still and bright, but none of it feels like conquest. It feels like arrival, not of dominance, but of wonder. Behind you, another astronaut moves, Buzz Aldrin. You hear his voice crackle across radios, but not in this dream. In this dream, there is only stillness and gratitude. For standing on another world is not an act of power. It is an act of reflection, and reflection is what the moon offers. From here, Earth is distant, small enough to cover with your thumb. Fragile, glowing, every city, every war, every child, every story, spinning slowly inside that blue sphere. It is not the moon that seems barren. It is Earth that now feels precious. The mission lasted hours, but its echoes have lasted decades. You step inside the command module now, a capsule barely large enough to stretch in. 3 men lived here, breathed here, dreamed here. They carried instruments, cameras, ancient hopes, but they also carried the memory of every culture that ever looked up and wondered, could we touch it? Could we go? And when they returned, they did not just bring back rocks, they brought perspective. From that moment on, we saw the Earth differently, not as a map with borders, but as a whole. A pale blue dot, floating, finite, shared. You drift now in that stillness between moon and Earth, between longing and landing. And in this space, history feels less like a line and more like an orbit. We turn toward the stars, always. And then we turn home. Apollo ended. The missions stopped. But the moon still waits. The footprints are still there. The flag may have faded. The tools may be buried. But the dust has not moved. The city built in silence still stands, not with walls, but with presence. And it reminds you, not all cities must be built for living. Some are built for remembering. You turn now, toward the edge of the horizon. It curves impossibly far, impossibly near. The sky is black, the ground silver, and somewhere out there, still sleeping in shadow, is the next story, the next step. But for now, you remain the stars. Blink above you, the same ones seen from deserts, from ships, from ruined temples and candlelit towers. You realize we've always looked at them. And finally, once we answered back, the moon listened. And just before the silence takes you, once more as you drift softly towards sleep, one last thought settles into your body like starlight on dust. If we could touch the moon, where else might our dreams already be waiting? You lie still, and the moonlight folds away like the last page of a book. The sky expands, gravity loosens. You are drifting again, farther this time, past planets, past moons, past the edge of warmth. You are not cold, you are not lost. You are simply returning to the place from which all things came. You are among the stars, and they are not silent. They shimmer gently in your periphery, pulsing with light that took thousands, sometimes millions of years to arrive. Every star you see is a letter from the past, glowing, drifting, still arriving. They are not watching you. They are remembering you. You pass one now, a red giant pulsing like a slow heartbeat. It once burned steady like our sun. Now it breathes out vast plumes of gas, its end, its gift, its release. You realize, with the hush of awe, that you are made of this, the calcium in your bones, the iron in your blood, the carbon that breathes from your chest, all born inside ancient stars that lived, died, and scattered themselves across space. The stars do not just shine, they give themselves away. You drift farther, passing dust clouds and nebulae, not empty, but becoming. You see places where stars are born, pink and violet clouds folding inwards, collapsing into heat, into fusion, into light. Every star is a beginning, and somewhere in the distance, the Voyager spacecraft still drifts, silent, golden, bearing a record of Earth, music, greetings, diagrams of our bodies, our cities, our home. It travels with no destination, only a message. We were here, a whisper flung into forever, and that is what humans have always done. From the moment we painted animals on cave walls, we've tried to leave behind something of ourselves. A note, a pattern, a song, not for glory, not for legacy, but out of longing, the hope that something, someone, somewhere will remember. The stars have heard it all. They heard the first fire crackle, the first prayer whispered on a mountaintop, the first lullaby, the clash of armies, the silence after, the breath before an eclipse. They do not answer, but they do not forget. You drift now past the Crab Nebula, the remains of a star that exploded almost 1,000 years ago. Chinese astronomers saw it in 1054. For weeks, it lit the sky, visible even during the day. Its light traveled for 6,500 years before it reached us, long after the star had already vanished. The stars show us what was, but also what still is. Light is a form of memory, a trace, a witness, a proof. And in this cosmic archive, you too are recorded. Every word you've spoken, every gaze, every kindness, every sorrow, reflected, refracted, glowing outward at the speed of light. You float now toward a quiet corner of space. Here there are no bright beacons, no flares, just a dense field of ancient stars, slow, old, wise. Their light is faint, but deep, like embers. These are the firstborn stars, almost as old as time itself. And you begin to understand, the universe does not keep time like a clock. It keeps it like a memory. Each moment is not lost, only stretched, curled outward like the rings of a tree, like ripples in a pond. The stars have no calendars. They hold what matters in light, in gravity, in pattern. They remember not the loudest things, but the most beautiful. You lie back in the dark. You are not afraid. This space, this silence, is not emptiness. It is presence. It is the breathing room of time. You realize now that history has never been only about kings or wars or buildings. It has always been about light. The light of a candle in a Roman bath, the gold glow of a lantern in Byzantium, the firelight on a scroll in Alexandria, the gleam of moonlight on dust, the glow of starlight in your eyes. Everywhere, the same question. Burns, will someone remember this? And the answer, whispered from galaxies turning in slow music, is always yes. You are remembered, not for your might, not for your titles, but for your questions, for your wonder, for the way you looked at the sky and asked, what if? And now, as sleep pulls you gently from this starlit drift, one final thought settles in your chest like a slow, soft flame. Maybe history is not something we study, but something that watches us back, and now you have walked through time. You have wandered with emperors, monks, sailors, scribes, listened to cities hold their breath, watched fires paint the night, and drifted among stars that still remember your name. History is not only behind you, it lives in your breath, your questions, your quiet awe. It is carried in the rhythm of walking, the silence of waiting, the way your mind reaches toward the dark and calls it beautiful. You are part of this story, not apart from it. Everything you've touched, everything you've wandered it to, will someday glow in the memory of time. The stars are still turning. The dust is still listening. The world will continue its long, soft drift through night. And you are safe now. You are resting inside a story that never truly ends. Let the past cradle you. Let sleep carry you deeper. You may forget the words, but something deeper will remain. The dream of those who once looked up, and the promise that someone, somewhere would remember. Good night, and thank you for walking through time